Two. Party of two? Two people?
Party of Two. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Party of Two. My name is Andrea Donica.
And I'm Mark B. Donica from the internet.
And we are here to talk about news in terms of parks, theme parks, entertainment parks, you name it.
And some of our favorites when it comes to today's episode. We'll be honest. We pre-taped a couple of the other ones in a big ol' row. So in a sense of there are a lot of headlines that we wanted to talk about that we didn't have a chance to because we just wanted to sort of pitch what our main types of shows were aside from just, hey, there's news, then we want to talk about news, which is what today's episode is going to be. And it's also going to be a bit of an in memoriam of Pixar Fest, whether or not we think it'll come back. But before we do that, we want to talk about some notable headlines. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
You know what? I'll go first because this has been a story that has been brewing for some time, been ongoing for years, actually. Mm-hmm. So Anaheim and Disneyland have been butting heads with each other for quite a few years now. Mm. And just a couple of years ago, Disneyland revealed that they were going to do this huge expansion with a new hotel. They were going to build all of these walkways going through the city of Anaheim to make things easier for guests. And really, they were going to get like up to $267 million in tax breaks from the city of Anaheim. It was going to be a really sweet deal. It was going to be a luxury hotel. They had these beautiful plans, but things kept going back and forth, all this nitpicking, and then Disney made some, at least from what they see, minor changes to their plans for the hotel. And some people at Anaheim and the city council did not feel that they were minor, and they said, nope, the plan that we made, the deal that we set in place, no longer good because this is too different from what we originally agreed upon. Yeah. So now Disney has said, all right, you know what, we want out of the deal, and we're going back to the drawing board. We don't want the tax breaks anymore. We want a clean slate, which really surprised a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And really what's especially shocking is a good portion of downtown Disney had already shut down in anticipation for a lot of construction and building to begin.
And not just small venues. It wasn't just little mom and pop shops. It was the big, like, expensive resort restaurants, mm-hmm. with the smallest being Earl of Sandwich, which as far as I can tell is a Disney exclusive because those are the only places where I've seen Earl of Sandwich locations.
Yeah, absolutely. Our first experience was with Disneyland Paris, and that was fun.
Yeah, we didn't eat there because they didn't take American Express.
Oh God, that was really rough. We waited in a long line. We were so hungry. Anyway, I digress. Everyone was waiting for construction to begin, and this just happens right in the middle of it, just after all of these other restaurants and facilities were vacated. And now we're kind of in this weird waiting period. This seems to be a political move by Disney because there is a big election coming up in November, and that is going to be based off of there's going to be a vote for wage hikes for employees in tourist companies, and that's very obviously aimed at Disney. Disney has, of course, already raised its wages for most of their employees to $15 an hour before it goes more widespread in 2 years' time. But the vote is going to be for 18, and
it's going to be what same
for 18 an hour.
Oh, okay.
And some people are speculating that Disney has pulled out of this deal because Anaheim's been griping saying, oh, you've been given all of these sweet deals over the years and you've been taking advantage of the city and you don't deserve it. And really, the city council and Disneyland have been butting heads over it. And Disney is trying to take a step back and say, you know what, let's kind of start with a clean slate here. Or it's a political motive, because, of course, they are going to be donating to people running for office. There's going to be new blood coming in, and people are speculating different things. So it's really an interesting ongoing development and non-development. I have constantly lamented over the fact that we don't have any truly 4-star quality hotels in Anaheim. Going to Florida and seeing all of the different options that you have for staying there, and then comparing that to Anaheim, it's really slim pickings in terms of a really nice luxury hotel experience. They don't have a 4-star hotel in Anaheim. Not even Grand Californian is technically a 4-star hotel, from what I've known.
Yeah, I don't. One of the articles that I found about this said that the Wincombe company made a 600-room Westin that falls under the same program that Disney was going to be subject to for theirs, and might have been close to 4, but it just calls it a luxury hotel. It doesn't necessarily say that it's a 4-star. But what does this news do to affect how you think of the company, or what do you think they should do in its stead?
I don't think any less of Disney over this at all. I mean, truthfully, big corporations and paying their employees a respectable living wage is always something that I think most people grapple with. I do feel that their employees should be paid much more than they are now. And the fact that so many of their cast members have been living in poverty for so long, I think it's absolutely shameful. And for the people that are on the front lines making the magic happen, that's not right. They shouldn't be living in their cars, and in some cases passing away in them because they're ill. And I think that Disney does need to do more. They need to step up much further to the plate. $15 an hour isn't remotely enough, especially if you're living in Anaheim, because it's pricey. It's not cheap. The greater Southern California area is not a cheap place to live.
No.
And I do think that they do need to be paying them more, but I also do think that customers, guests should be getting a luxury hotel. And it is kind of frustrating that the city has been fighting them over it for so long, because I'm sitting here going, well, when is it going to happen? And geez, they were going to build this hotel not where certain portions of downtown Disney is. And then they said, okay, fine, you're not going to give us the space, because technically Disney was trying to build in places where other older hotels were before actually talking to them to buy it. And when that came out, that was a little shady and uncomfortable. But when Disney said, okay, fine, you know what? We have a good portion of property on downtown Disney. We'll just, remove a couple of businesses there and we'll build there. And then the city makes a big stink about that, like it's their land. And I understand that there are building codes and certain things that you have to respect. But from my vantage point, when the city started nitpicking on those plans, that was really just them being politically motivated to just be a thorn in their side. And I don't understand why.
So the okay, here we go. Disneyland Resort and International Parks and Resorts Chief Counsel David Ontko had this to say: "The city's inexplicable delay in raising the hotel's location is an issue, despite knowing about the location for more than 8 months and participating in multiple project meetings, coupled with the city's unwillingness to work together in a cooperative fashion to address it, further demonstrates the ongoing challenging business environment in Anaheim." And with the delay and possible cancellation of this project, it put 1,500 construction jobs at risk.
Yeah.
And then 1,000 permanent jobs of more staff of the new building, as well as $25 million in additional revenue that it would have generated the city within the first 5 years.
And that's also not taking into account all of the employees that were part of these other businesses that had to close down, and suddenly they've had to start looking for other jobs. Now suddenly Earl of Sandwich is going to be coming back. We don't know for how long, but
speaking of the jobs specifically that that are lost, there's only one company that can kind of shift people around. AMC can take a lot of its higher ups and a number of its staff and send it to a number of different locations close enough in the area to it's not that much of a disruption to a number of the regular employees' day-to-day commutes, things like that. Whereas more niche businesses like Rainforest Cafe, wasn't this the last ESPN zone, or one of the last?
That was the last ESPN zone. They are no more.
So depending on what company ESPN zone was under, like what restaurant chain company, because I thought it was with a couple of other higher restaurants.
From my understanding, ESPN zone was actually fully under the Disney theme park organization towards the end, but
okay.
I could be wrong about that.
And Rainforest Cafe, I think that might be under another restaurant group, like something like that.
It's gotta be.
So it's a lot more difficult for those chains to really find places to put displaced employees, or you just put a whole bunch of people out of work for no reason.
Yeah.
And when it comes to Earl of Sandwich, when we were there a couple months ago, very soon to the end of closing, they were training people, and we were like, what's going on? It's like, well, the store is gonna stay open in some way, shape, or form for a while. And so we're like, oh, maybe it's not as serious as we had thought. But they closed it down on the given date, and then as recently as last Friday, dating this episode, they announced that it was going to be coming back officially soon. For however long, we don't know. So cool. Like, we were a big fan of that chain, so it's good to have them back, and good to have those workers back on the force. But for everybody else in the situation, it's really crappy, and I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and it's just uncomfortable and weird, and it's never magical to see a bunch of dark, unutilized businesses and buildings.
Especially with the high theming that they are. Rainforest Cafe is so highly themed. It's got the pyramid in the back. And ESPN Zone has the weird sports faces on the side of the building. And Earl of Sandwich is a building. But AMC, it's
sandwiches.
Yeah. But I mean, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, the theming of that building isn't as intense as the other two.
But they're affordable sandwiches, so we love Earl of Sandwich. Earl of Sandwich, if you would like to sponsor this podcast, we are waiting for you.
Who owns Earl of Sandwich?
I especially love the Thanksgiving sandwich.
Yeah, the holiday one.
That's my favorite. I eat it all the time. Who owns them?
It was founded by the R.T. Hahn. Either way, it was whatever. Either way,
they put gravy on the sandwich, you guys. It's really good.
The Honorable.
The Honorable Earl of Sandwich?
No. That's it. The Hun is short for the. Anyway,
Oh.
we're going off track. This was sad news for a lot of people.
Yeah.
In and around the happening, but ultimately, I hope cooler heads prevail. And regardless of what the hotel is, I hope Disney ends up paying its employees what they deserve.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
One of the other things that came out I say recently, but it was a couple of weeks ago at this point, was that we're finally getting booze at Disneyland for public consumption. And this is really, and here's why I talked about this with a friend of the show, Ken Knapsack. You may have heard him 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago, he was the employee that got us onto the ride. But with it was our Jurassic Park episode. With
nice.
With this though, it's a very unique situation because he was coming at it from a Star Wars from a certain point of view. He was coming at it from a Star Wars point of view, but us being in the middle, us being children of two worlds, in between both sides of the Force, if you will.
Two worlds,
one
family.
And I don't want to sing that, but we're getting Oga's Cantina. We knew that we were getting a cantina, but it has officially been titled Oga's Cantina as the part of Black Spire Outpost on Batuu. And something that I definitely want to do before too long, but I think you should too. Apparently the new Thrawn book, Thrawn Alliances, a lot of it takes place on Batuu.
Really?
And some people, and now the Star Wars scholars, as I'll call them, have been wondering how much of Alliances is it's so descriptive to the point of like, is this the travel brochure? Or sort of a thing of like, is this gonna be there? Like, it's weird because
Are they friends with Imagineering?
well, it's Timothy Zahn, so it's the original Thrawn creator novelist who wrote a sequel to the new canon Thrawn novel, but it's still Ken made it sound like and Joseph made it sound like it was like I don't know, this is a little too fishy, but I really want to read it and check it out. We've been so busy, but the main caveat here is when the news came out, it was, oh, there's going to be a cantina. Wait, are we going to be able to drink in it? But then it's in Disneyland, and that goes against Uncle Walt. But then it's the Star Wars fans like, yeah, but it's a cantina. But then the Parks fan is like, yeah, but Uncle Walt says. So I want to know what your feeling on the subject is.
So for listeners at home that don't know, Walt Disney specifically did not want to have alcohol consumed at Disneyland unless you were in Club 33, because that was a wine and dine establishment for people in the industry that he was trying to connect with. That was the whole purpose of why it was built. He was of the opinion that if you needed to be drinking at Disneyland, you clearly weren't having a good enough of a time, and obviously it's the happiest place on earth, so why would you need to have alcohol? And he also just didn't want to see the park possibly get trashy, because another reason why he wanted to build Disneyland in the first place was he went to a little carnival area with his daughters, and he sat on a dirty old bench, and there was litter everywhere, and, you know, it was hot. There were crummy people walking around, and his daughters were having fun on the carousel, but he wasn't. And it wasn't a nice family environment, so he wanted to change that with his park. And this idea has been held to very strictly for all this time, for 60 plus years. And now, all of a sudden, we're going to have alcohol in Disneyland. Now, they first changed things over in Magic Kingdom in Florida, because when they opened that up, they didn't sell alcohol there either. Once they opened Epcot, they were like, this is a completely different thing. This is more adult oriented, and we're going to, you know, be representing all of these different countries. And alcohol is a major export. It's something that we should be featuring. But once they opened up New Fantasyland and opened the Be Our Guest restaurant, obviously with France, wine is a really big deal. And that was when the conversation first started in terms of the Disney theme park community of, oh, are they going to do this? Are they not going to do this? And people were really on the fence, but a lot of people were saying, you know what, if I'm going to, be in this really highly themed restaurant, having this nice French meal, I would like to have a glass of wine with my meal. And ultimately, that's what Disney decided to do. They said, you know what, we're going to open it up. We're going to just have this be the place where people can drink. And now it's moved over to Disneyland. And I remember when they were talking about the Cantina, when I think of the Cantina, it's like, obviously, it's a bar. The Cantina is a bar. That's what it's supposed to be. And I was initially on the fence. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to feel like it's cool enough, if there isn't any liquor there, if it's just a bunch of different mocktail drinks. I don't know if that's going to be as exciting for me as an adult. It's not going to feel as authentic. And I think that this might be what it comes down to, the authenticity of what it's supposed to be. I think this is why they ultimately have decided to break with this tradition and actually serve alcohol. And from what it sounds like, it's only going to be specifically mixed drinks. It's not a full bar.
I can give you a bit of a rundown.
Please.
So they've made it work in story as well, with the fact that this is a place where bounty hunters are, smugglers are. There's the presence of the First Order. So if you're coming into a cantina, you can't necessarily just be slinging around drinks all the time. So it sounds like it's similarly to other in California Adventure and other events where it's not, hey, we have stuff that we're mixing at the checkout counter. They just have the bottles of the pre-made stuff, they pour it in the glass, and they serve it to you. It's essentially going to be that, but they're going to be Star Wars bottles as opposed to just plastic bottles. But the way that they're making it sound is it's a little more dangerous. Because there's bounty hunters everywhere, there's smugglers everywhere. You can't just be walking around with a drink because you'll get in trouble. So you have to drink it in the cantina. You have to finish it in the cantina. And once you're finished, you'll be allowed to leave.
Well, I hope that there aren't going to be any bounty hunters trying to roofie me in the cantina either.
That's dark, but no, of course not. What the crap? Jeez, your unabashed self.
That's what you told me to be.
I did, but they're not. They would do other things.
Well, maybe they could still drop something in the drink to make it fizz and go be I don't know, be really like sciencey cool. I don't know.
I mean, maybe.
I'm hoping.
You went to another place instantly and threw me way off. One of my favorite things about this is we knew it from the concept art, but a decommissioned Rex RX-24 droid, a former pilot of a Starspeeder 3000, is going to be the DJ of the cantina. Apparently,
DJ Rex!
Apparently, it's going to be just as quirky and just as talkative, according to the direct language of the press release. No word yet on if Paul Rubens is going to secretly take up his old role as Rex, but
I hope he does.
Yeah, I think all of this is the right move. By keeping especially with how on stage the Galaxy's Edge is going to be. Hold for plane, if you can hear plane. But regardless, I think if they were going to do it, this is the best possible way that they could do it, and I look forward to it.
Yeah, and it's going to be really nice to have Rex hanging around again, and he might not be the best DJ considering how much he struggled being a pilot, but I am looking forward to listening and seeing his skills in the DJ realm.
Get ready to listen to some unique music, taste the best drinks in the galaxy, and surround yourself with a colorful cast of characters. You never know what will happen at the Cantina. That's the log line.
Yeah.
But it is Oga's Cantina at Black Spire Outpost, and I'm pretty sure the line's going to be pretty long, pretty consistently.
I really hope that they have a good amount of seating in there, because there's probably going to be quite a lot of people that won't want to leave once they get in.
Well, looking at the map, it doesn't look like that big of an installation, especially if this isn't a restaurant space at a Disney park.
Right.
This is a cantina at an outpost on a planet from a galaxy far, far away, long, long ago, a galaxy far, far away. And so with that, there's already not going to be a lot of room.
Yeah.
So I wonder how they're going to handle it. How close to the cantina that we're familiar with in Mos Eisley, how familiar to that design it's going to be, or is it going to be its own thing? How much people are going to be watching the doors to make sure that people don't walk out with the alcohol, or if there's going to be some sensor in each of the glasses that they get served in. So possibly.
Well, no, I just got this vision in my head that suddenly, if you try to cross over the threshold, that the glass just shatters into a million pieces.
I mean, probably not that.
I just thought it'd be funny.
I would say it shatters in a million pieces because it's shot out of your hand by a bounty hunter or a smuggler.
Oh.
Pew!
Or
and you hear laser,
a force-wielding
noise.
bartender.
Something like, no. Oga's like, I don't know. I'm interested to see the type of, since now we know our first sort of named character in this land, how many Ogas are there going to be? How, like, it's difficult because it's going to be the same Oga, and if the reputation system is what is all that it's cracked up to be, as they've indicated in the past, will the different Ogas, if you catch my meaning, remember you? You know, like, will your magic band, like, hit a sensor and they can see a screen that shows them whatever, like what you ordered last time or whatever. Like
and then you come up and they're like the usual.
Something like that.
I know this is again diverting from our main talking points, but I keep wondering very anxiously when we're going to finally get to use magic bands in Disneyland, because it made things so much easier at Disney World Resort, and I'm just waiting so desperately. Like, if they don't premiere it with Galaxy's Edge, it's just not going to make any sense. So they have to be ready to roll this out, but they haven't made any announcements related to it, and I'm wondering why.
I'm still wondering how much of the signage is going to be in Arabesh and how much is going to be in Basic.
Yeah.
Because we'll talk about Galaxy's Edge at a later time, but I thought that this was an interesting story to bring up from both of our perspectives of being Star Wars fans. But we're here today to lay to rest a recent seasonal event that may or may not be returning. We don't know yet. They haven't announced what a landmark success it was. Pixar Fest. Now, Pixar Fest seemed like a good opportunity to debut Pixar Pier, and they switched the parks at which certain parades were performing at. They had some specific Pixar events and food and things of that nature. And we got to experience it a couple of times. We got to see an early screening, if you will, of the what was it? What do they call it? Together Forever, the nighttime spectacular. And that was nice.
It was nice.
And I think it was difficult because I'm pretty sure they had all of that nailed down for months, and Coco was a much bigger hit than they may have been anticipating, because the Coco bit is so small. So small. Is a ridiculously, to me, I think, for the success and how much that movie has transcended like earlier Pixar movies have. I think if they do this again, it's gonna have a much bigger presence. Right now, during Halloween time, they have their own show at Pixar Pier or at the Paradise Gardens, which looks remarkable. It's the same puppetry system that they use for Timon on Broadway to do all of the escalitos, like Mame Imelda and all of them. And but what's amazing is Miguel even has the guitar, and it looks like he's playing the guitar.
Really?
It's very, very, very skilled puppeteers that are working that. But with this, we got Together Forever. For some reason, they switched Paint the Night and the Pixar Play Parade to the point that kept us out of Disneyland Park at night. Like, oh God. But especially our last trip, it was so hot outside. It was just the death.
It was bad.
We spent plenty of time at the Pixar short presentations in both Disneyland and California Adventure.
Yeah, you can knock those air-conditioned theaters all you want, but on a hot summer Anaheim day, those buildings are a godsend, and whatever is playing, I will come to see it, and those shorts were really, really wonderful to watch.
Especially on the big screen again.
Yeah.
And a little surprised that they showed Bao, which debuted with Incredibles 2 over the summer, because I think the shorts are almost as much of a selling point to a movie as the movie itself.
Agreed.
So in California Adventure, it was Sanjay's super team, Bao, and I think Piper was in Tomorrowland for the moment. So I think it was an older one.
La Luna?
Yes, it was La Luna, because we saw the moons on the side, and with Sanjay's super team, they had a lot of the effects like going through the theater, which was really cool, and it was great to see Sanjay's super team again. It was great to see all of them again. And when it came to Piper, I hadn't seen Piper because I didn't watch Finding Dory until it came out on home release. So being able to see that on a big screen was a big thing. Getting able to see For the Birds again.
For the Birds is so good.
One of the classics. And that's one of the things that I thought was really successful, because the Pixar shorts, no matter how people feel about the movies, the shorts kind of have a life of their own, to the point where Disney released the collection of Pixar shorts, and now Disney is doing shorts again.
That's
like it
true.
really reinvigorated the short cartoon genre and reinvigorated a piece of movie history where you would get cartoons before a movie, or newsreels before a movie, or something like that.
Yeah.
But the main crux of the new stuff was Pixar Pier, and initially pretty sad, I should say, that we lost Paradise Pier.
Yeah.
Because it was a very well themed. Everything looked very nice. But once you make the change of California Screamin' to the Incredicoaster, then you're like, okay, well, we also have Toy Story Midway Mania right there. We can do a Pixar celebration thing on this pier. It made sense. Ultimately, I think it made sense. When you heard the news about Pixar Pier, what did you think?
I was very confused.
Why's that?
Okay, so I remember them announcing this from the get-go at D23 with John Lasseter on stage with Bob Iger, I believe.
Pretty sure.
And Lasseter was like so excited, and it felt, the announcement had like absolutely no information past, we're going to throw Pixar into this area.
I think
essentially.
we got the Incredicoaster announcement.
Possibly.
But that was really it.
But literally it felt like, oh, they came up with this like 3 nights ago, and now they're going to announce this. And it just rubbed me the wrong way, because it just felt like a cheap gimmick. And ultimately, coming to see Pixar Pier, a lot of it did ultimately feel cheap and thrown together haphazardly. Not all of it is finished. Now, I will say...
By now, we still have the Inside Out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The thing is, you can't advertise for like a new land if you don't have pretty much all of the rides going. That's my opinion anyway. And if you don't have all of the rides going, the theming has to be strong enough, and all of the other pieces need to be strong enough to fight that burden. Like, if Galaxy's Edge opens up in soft opening, for example, and one of the rides isn't working because they're still doing technical rehearsals, for example, they're not going to complain about it. They're going to be so excited that they just get to walk through the land because the theming is going to be so strong. It's going to be full of so many different experiences that they're not going to care. However, going over to Pixar Pier, it's very obvious that with the paint still drying in some places and not started in others, this was really last minute. They really didn't finish everything. A lot of it is still being built. When we went, Bing Bong in the candy shop was still behind walls.
Well, you brought up a lot of stuff that isn't done. They planned so one of the rides at Flicks Fun Fair is being retooled as an Inside Out ride. I think the planning on that alone to have Bugs Land close after they opened Pixar Pier was a bit of an oversight, so that there's a lot less time between the opening of this land and the creation of this ride, because it's not as easy as just digging out the ride, putting it on a crane and wheeling it over to the pier and then putting it in right in the spot where they want to.
But again, that's also a cheap design and choice to make, because when I initially heard that there was going to be an Inside Out ride and that people were, at least there were even rumors about there being possibly an Inside Out ride going into that area, people were really excited about how creative they could get with a dark ride. Because that's a property that has a lot of room for creativity.
It's in the nature of the show.
Exactly. And all they're doing is they're taking this cheap carnival ride and they're just moving it. And for me, that's really disappointing. And I mean, I think visually it's going to be a lot of fun when it's there. That's great. But ultimately, there won't be anything truly new once everything is said and done. Everything is just a reskin.
Yeah, and the Jesse's Critter Carousel we don't know. I don't even know if we have a timetable on that, or a confident timetable on that. I think if we had World of Color, and it was like a Pixar-themed world. Honestly, I think Together Forever could also work as a World of Color show.
You know what? That might have even been what they were originally planning.
I don't know, because a lot of the food that they put out ended up going to Disneyland proper, but really the only Pixar presence is in Tomorrowland, Finding Nemo, Buzz Lightyear. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so and then you could put some Coco theming in Frontierland, but aside from that, there's not too much of anything.
I will say, trying to go to a positive out of all of this,
and there are some.
I really love the new smoothies. They are so good.
The Inside Out ones?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
They have boba-esque flavor bubbles that are colored and themed to the different types of thoughts. That it's a very fun idea, and I hope one that stays sustainable.
Yeah.
Because it seems like they can be, but at the same time, in a year, if it's not working out, they'll just go to basic flavors.
Yeah.
It seems like they've made a way out for them. But it also introduced different flavors of the standard candy that we get. And yeah, everything is like fine. Like Anger Dogs, that's a cute idea.
It's a cute idea.
And you get spicy hot dogs. The Senor Buzz's churros, okay. The one that I think is a bit of a stretch is the Chicken Palace, which is a reference to a a Toy Story short, which people may not even have seen.
Yeah, I think that was more to serve a function for
Sure.
Giving kids chicken nuggets because they'll eat chicken nuggets.
We
If
also-
you have a picky eater, just give them a chicken nugget. They'll be happy.
We also got the opening of Adorable Snowman's Frosted Treats.
I wanted to talk about that. That was the first thing that we got to experience from Pixar Pier. A lot of stuff was still under construction, but that was one of the first things to kind of free itself from the tarps, and so we went over.
Chocolate, vanilla, non-dairy lemon, and they have a bit of a float where they put it over blue raspberry sort of frozen treat.
Ugh.
It's really sugary,
So
but
sugary.
it takes the edge off the lemon a bit, at least for me.
I am lactose intolerant. Not that you would know it if you watched me eat, but
She says with a chocolate shake next to her.
I enjoyed it, but it was very tart. I didn't want to get the freeze. I just wanted to get the swirl with the white chocolate on top. I thought that there would be a lot more white chocolate than they put on.
It was just a little dip to be like a mountaintop.
It was practically a drizzle. I was hoping that it would be like a whole a full dip of the entire thing.
Well, we're used to that location being a full like a flavor swirl back in the OG days when
Yeah.
that was the best.
And part of me was hoping that that's how they were going to do it with the lemon as well. But I've heard that it's less tart now. We haven't gone back and tried it again. And I'm going to give it one more shot to see. But ultimately, for me, it doesn't knock out a Dole Whip. And I really, really, really wish the citrus swirl would come over to California because it's so, so good. And
That's all you got?
I miss the little orange bird.
Oh, don't worry, it's all over the place. But looking through some of this material again, both the Inside Out Emotional Whirlwind, which is what the ride is being called,
Right.
and Jesse's Critter Carousel will be debuting in 2019. It just gives 2019. But this big celebration of sort of a reinvigoration, I've used that word a lot today, of the animation coming from Disney. Do you think it worked?
I mean, it most likely got more people buying day tickets and definitely brought the annual pass holders out. I'm sure it got the foot traffic, but I don't know if it necessarily satisfied guest expectations.
Sure. I think the Incredicoaster is a good start.
Yes.
I think-
wish the figures were animated because they're all still. And everyone's been seeming to complain about the Jacks on a stick. Which I understand. If you don't have a coaster, we've talked about this before. If it's not in a full show building, you can't control the elements enough. But I do like the overall idea of what Incredicoaster is now. I think it's a lot of fun. And, I mean, Jack and Auntie Edna is just the best combination ever.
What I was going to say is you don't need as intense of theming as they gave it, even if you just put the Incredibles soundtrack on, sort of like how we got Rockin' Space Mountain and Rockin' California Screamin' a couple years ago. Even if you just did a Pixar Fest version of California Screamin' and put the Incredibles soundtrack on it, I think that would have been enough, because I think what they did is good and fine, but I don't think this version of the ride is going to be here in 10 years' time.
That's kind of the feeling that I got from it, too, when I saw at least the figures.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Incredibles can last. I think it could. The thing is, a lot of properties that Disney builds a ride or an attraction out of can outlast what the original property lasted through.
What I mean to say is that this version of it, all of these figures, all of the effects, all of everything isn't going to last for 5 years. I think we're going to slowly start to see the removal of a bunch of Jack Jacks. We're going to start like Violet may move or change, Dash may move or change. I think everybody where they're at currently is subject to change, and that's why they're still figures as opposed to motion figures.
They're waiting for the budget to come in.
Possibly, and it could be plussed, it can be added to. Honestly, I think they could have put the whole roller coaster in tubes. And that could have helped a little bit. They could, and as much as we don't necessarily like them, using projections could have helped a lot.
Oh yeah.
But then you have to deal with the sun. But then why would you black out the tubes if you're not going to try to use it to capture some sort of light? Yeah, and though there's a little bit of some when Jack Jack flexes his powers a little bit. There's a little bit of it.
Yeah.
But it's not to the level. All of Pixar Pier is somebody just took a transparent layer and just sort of put it over Paradise Pier. And that's not to say that the work that has gone into it isn't it's hard. I'm trying not to double talk, but we hope that there's more evolution in the future.
Yeah.
And that even though they were going towards this date in the summer for Pixar Fest, maybe it would have been a better idea to keep it as Paradise Pier as you're still working on stuff, and once everything is done, that's when we can rebrand it as Pixar Pier, and Pixar Fest is 2019, but in 2019 that's when Galaxy's Edge opens up. But you can have Pixar Fest as the big thing in California Adventure,
exactly,
while you have Galaxy's Edge opening up in Disneyland.
And from a business standpoint, I think that would have been a better idea, because then it's like, okay, well, you can go to Galaxy's Edge or you can go here. You can pick.
Because they don't have... In Florida, they have stuff in this park that isn't in that park. Aside from holiday, aside from Christmas, we're doing this thing in Magic Kingdom. We're doing this other thing in Hollywood Studios. We're doing this other thing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when it comes to Pixar Fest, I think ultimately there's a lot of ideas when it comes to the food that I think will probably carry over.
Yeah.
But other than that, the Nighttime Spectacular was fine. They made a very unique choice of putting the incinerator scene from Toy Story 3 in it.
Oh, God. That's right. I don't understand why.
It was a very bizarre choice. It was meant to... They were
like
trying
Mufasa's death being included in World of Color.
But even that came at the end of a villain's portion. Whereas all of this is supposed to be a celebration, a spectacular, a this, a that.
Celebration of friendship.
Yeah, and in that guise, they got away with it. But I think you could have invoked a similar... And I even think they did. They used the part where Andy drives away.
Yeah.
Like you can use that part and you can still evoke similar feelings of friendship. You can use stuff from Toy Story 2. You can use stuff from Toy Story 1, like when they run Sid off, There's a lot of stuff from the Toy Story franchise that you can use that isn't the most terrifying scene of the trilogy. But ultimately it was nice to see a lot of the different franchises that don't necessarily get the up and up, and it was
WALL-E.
Yeah, well, I mean, WALL-E featured in World of Color, so
well, sure, but still, more adorable robots, please.
Okay.
Always.
And never forget, life is a highway. Ride it all night long. Even the little bit that they gave to why can't I remember it? Arlo's spot.
A Good Dinosaur.
Good Dinosaur. Even the little bit that they gave to Good Dinosaur, which was like the best sequence of that movie, but still, it's like, oh, okay, good. We've got a little bit niceness here. I don't think it was a slam dunk, runaway, grand slam success.
But it was entertaining for the summer, and that's great. And
it got us a new part of Paint the Night, with the new Incredibles float.
Yes.
But aside from that, Andrea, what do you want to see this return?
I don't really care if it returns. I'd love for the shorts to stick around or come around every now and again. However, I do miss Muppet Vision 3D, though I know that that's probably just never coming back. And I'm curious to see what happens with all of the quick service dining locations. Oh, and while we haven't visited this place yet, we will be soon. Lamplight Lounge.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the bigger additions from Pixar Pier that we'll be able to give you more of a report on. It's obviously in very high demand and hard to get reservations for, but this girl figured it out for her husband's birthday, so she's pretty proud of herself.
She also just started referring to herself in the third person.
I mean, I do that sometimes.
And back to first.
Whatever. And I've heard some good things about the food and the drinks for that, so I'm looking forward to it.
The thing about that, though, is that space has always been in high demand. Like,
Yeah.
even back when it was the Boardwalk Lounge or whatever it's called, Lobster Nachos, blah, blah, blah.
The lobster nachos are still there.
Yep.
And I want to try them
And
finally.
I bet you do. But what that I don't think was as much of a transformation. They did, yes, they do. They have rethemed a lot of stuff to various Pixar properties, but I don't think it wasn't. It was less of a way to improve the area by adding Pixar theming and more of a, excuse me, we might as well change to Pixar theming while we're here. They added Nick's Knacks. That's right there. That store. They changed all of the Boardwalk games to be Pixar themed, but like cool.
I want to win the Luna stars.
Yeah, they're very adorable.
They're really cute.
And I remembered the other short. They had lava in the Tomorrowland Theater, and that was great to see on screen again.
We love lava.
Yeah, we lava it. In its current state, I'm in the same boat. I think they could take some of the special items that they had for Pixar Fest and place them around Pixar Pier to have them available. But ultimately, it wasn't as much of a stamp as like a Paint the Night was, where, oh, this needs to be here all the time because this is pure magic. This was good. This was fine. Pixar Pier is fine. Thank you. Hashtag Pixar Pier is fine.
He's really not fine.
Yeah, but that's that's ultimately what it is. If they can reincorporate, or they just in general incorporate some of the visuals that they've created for the event into other places, I think that'd be the best use of it.
By the way, I just have to say this. Everyone was talking about Jack Jack's Cookie Num Nums.
There you go.
And I was really excited to see what the storefront of this place looked like. And you have to go into the queue/exit area of the Incredicoaster. And that is the worst place to put a line for food. Why doesn't it have its own space? I couldn't even tell that it was a cart that sold anything. It was so small compared to everything else that it was around, and with all of the crowding. So, Disney, if you are listening, I love you. Please find another place for Jack Jack's Cookie Num Nums and give it the signage it deserves.
It won't work because they've specifically said that there are 4 different neighborhoods for 4 different properties, and there's the Incredibles neighborhood, then there's the Toy Story neighborhood that starts from Jesse's Critter Carousel and goes through Midway Mania, and then there's the Inside Out, which goes from the candy store to the ride, and then it goes to Paradise Gardens.
Well, then frickin' A, we're just never gonna have Cookie Num Nums.
I mean, we could, but
we can't make it past the crowds. It's too overwhelming.
Yeah, the cheetah's overwhelmed. Ultimately, we've been holding up this cast member who's just this might even be their last day, but I feel bad. I feel bad holding up. Well, they seem distressed. They've been looking at us very angrily, and we've been holding them up. So
we need to do this podcast a different way. I feel like we're antagonizing people.
I have no idea what you're talking about. But before we go, before we get on this ride, Andrea, where can the folks follow you for more goodness?
You can follow me on Twitter at MakeItAqua and on Instagram at Princess Briar Rose.
And I'm the internet's Mark B. Donica. You can find me on Twitter at Mark B. Donica. Make sure to follow the show at Party of Two Pod. That's where we're going to be posting various pictures from trips and excursions and things of that nature. So make sure to follow us there. We're working on starting up YouTube as another place to host the show and various videos that we take from various experiences. But until then, we're going to get on this ride, and we'll see you at the parks.